Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope you guys all had a great weekend. We saw some bunch of different sports over the weekend. Conclusion of the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, a great golf tournament on the weekend, some good hockey action, basketball among other things, and also spring training and exhibition games started out in Major League Baseball yesterday. So those will be happening throughout the month as we pivot here into the month of March. And I'm going to start today just talking about golf, and I thought was a great act yesterday by the PGA Tour and a lot of players. And that's a lot of guys wearing red, and that was obviously to shout out and support Tiger Woods. If you know golf, even if you don't know golf, you know that Tiger Woods wears his red and black pants on Sundays. You can think of Augusta National, the biggest tournaments, him winning majors. He's always in red, and we saw a bunch of players do that yesterday. Justin Thomas, Tony Finau, and that was just a great gesture. I think if every player could have done it, I think it would have been great. I know it's tough because they're traveling, they bring a bag with them, so they might not have it, at the ready to wear, obviously black and red. The players that did it, I think it was fantastic. Obviously, he's an icon. He's the greatest golfer probably to ever do it, and I just think it's a sign of respect that every one of these golfers has for him. It's he's passing the torch to these new young kids. The Justin Thomases, to the eventual winner yesterday. He's paved the way for all these guys to have a personality, to have those marketing, those opportunities to be a star, not just be, a crusty old golfer. These guys can be different. You look at Bryson DeChambeau. I think of even Koepka, the way he handles himself. I think without Tiger Woods, if you see a guy come in now and he's got a little bit of a swagger, he's a little bit different. In the past, I don't think it would have sat well because golf is a sport where it rests on its history. And Tiger, although he might not have on the course, he might not be, different. He doesn't have a swing that you're like, well, that's so much different. He doesn't have a Matthew Wolff type swing, but he just presented himself differently. And that's not just about race. That's just about him having an aura about him that no other player ever will, I don't think. But I just thought that was a great gesture yesterday. Made the tournament that much more special. And, obviously a great end to the weekend, but I thought that was great. The tournament, it was fantastic till the end, really. The final 5 or 6 holes were kind of monotonous because you knew who was going to win. And the eventual winner was Collin Morikawa with shooting 18 under for the tournament, three under yesterday. And this guy's 24 and he's a star already. I mean, he won the PGA Championship, the major last year, wins a big tournament here with a stacked field, beating out Koepka. Hovland was at the top of the leaderboard, Webb Simpson. I mean, these guys are major threats, and he beat them by at least 3 strokes. And the thing about yesterday for Morikawa is he's not the biggest guy off the tee. He's not going to hit the ball, a DeChambeau length, a DJ, a Koepka length. But what his strength is his second shot. I mean, you get him to a wedge, you get him to his 9-iron. He can put it within 4 feet of the hole. And we saw that a bunch yesterday, I think at the par 3 on 11. I mean, he just diced that one right. It was a birdie, it was a gift. He missed a few birdie putts yesterday that I thought were gimmies, but he didn't play fantastic, but he was kind of vintage Tiger on Sunday where he just was steady. Other players were playing well, but they'd make mistakes to drop them back. He never really did. He had 1 bogey early in the round, and after that, he settled in. He found his way, so to speak, and he stayed consistent. He started the day, he was paired with Billy Herschel, and Herschel did finish tied for second, but he was at the end of the tournament, he was struggling. He couldn't find the fairway. He got into a bunch of tough bunkers. He dropped a couple strokes. Hovland had a great day. Victor Hovland, who's also tied for second, shot 5 under yesterday. But he got into some trouble late. He kind of went for broke there at the end. A couple bogeys he'd like to have back, and a couple putts too that I'm sure he'd love to have back. I think of 17, he was still sort of in there. Had a putt that was makeable, missed it, and then ultimately went to 15 and he parred the hole. Koepka as well. Koepka had I wouldn't say it was an easy putt for Eagle on 17 on the par 5, but it was makeable. And then he missed the putt, and then he missed the birdie putt, and that was it. I mean, that was check plays, being 3 strokes back going into 18. But for Morikawa, I mean, I said last week that Jerry Foltz on the Golf Channel said Morikawa was one of the guys that he would pick to win. So that's who I was kind of riding with. So I'll take credit for that. But I think golf's in such a good place right now. Obviously, Tiger being hurt, that hurts, obviously. But Tiger is not the best golfer in the world anymore. He's not even close. So you see the likes of, again, Morikawa winning this big tournament, winning a major last year. Victor Hovland, who tied for second. I mean, this guy is a star. I think he's going to be a major champion. It wouldn't shock me if he won a major this year. I think he's that good of a golfer. I mean, the way he hits his driver, he's really good at keeping it on the fairway. Like I said, shooting 5 under on a Sunday at a big tournament is no easy feat. He's kind of got to work on his short game a little bit. We saw it on Friday. He had a quad on the 18th hole. So that was, if he didn't have that, I mean, he'd be in real good shape to win the tournament. But again, he's Koepka. He finished tied for second. He won a tournament 2-3 weeks ago with the Waste Management. He's locked in right now. Koepka, last year he was hurt all year. He had some shoulder problems. He had knee surgery. He looks like he's back. The Masters is in a month. He's got to be for me, he's at the top of the leaderboard for favorites to win the tournament. I mean, he's won 4 majors in his career. Again, he's playing unbelievable right now. He looks very confident, and he plays his best at majors. That's the thing about Koepka, where, this tournament, I'm sure he would have loved to have won it, but he said in the past, I don't really care about these outside tournaments. The majors are what's important. That's where the money is. That's where your legacy stands on. And I think he's right there when it comes to being a betting favorite. Dustin Johnson struggled the past 2 weeks, but again, he'd be defending champion. He's still ranked number 1 in the world, so he would be a good threat. You still have Justin Thomas. You got Rory, who played pretty well. Patrick Reed, who you can never underestimate. He's won at Augusta before, so I could see him winning there as well. I just think golf right now has got great players. It's got good personalities, and you're seeing just good golf. I think every week, again, I said the last 5-6 holes were a little monotonous because you knew Morikawa was going to win unless he just completely lost it. But the weekend as a whole, it stayed so close, the leaderboard, and that's what's great. You get to a Saturday, Sunday, and it's close. It makes for great TV, and I think I love what the PGA Tour's done. I think through a pandemic, the way they've kept every tournament going, players going to each tournament, so that there's no real dud where you're like, okay, there's nobody here that I mean, you got a great tournament next weekend, or this weekend coming up with the Arnold Palmer. The weekend after is the Players Championship, which is always a fun event. And then you got Augusta like I said, in a month. Golf just doesn't slow down. I mean, we're only in March, and this is already great. I mean, the summer months with tournaments, you got like the John Deere, you got multiple majors. Normally you see the Canadian Open, which obviously might be again canceled this year, but I think golf's in a great spot. I think for a few years there, it just didn't have players that were that compelling, and that's key to any sport. And again, that's marketing, but that's also just getting eyeballs on the screen. I like Koepka because he's different. I don't root for anybody to win, but I think if you're an average fan and you're saying, Billy Herschel's a great golfer, but that doesn't ring a bell. if it's Billy Horschel in the final pair with Justin Rose, who's really excited about that? But I think you got enough names to keep people, even if, say, Herschel's in the lead at a major on a Sunday, if Koepka's 3 strokes back, you're going to keep watching because you're like, well, Koepka could eagle the par 5 in his sleep. He's down by a stroke. We got a ball game here. So I just think it's a great spot where golf is right now. It needs to keep riding this wave of momentum. They've been going throughout the pandemic. We've seen the NHL have a long layoff. We saw the NBA obviously have a longer layoff. The NFL was in their off season. UFC and golf have really been the constant when it comes to us sports fans and what you can watch. So I think it's, again, credit to the PGA Tour, credit to the players who have to pass COVID tests. They're clearly not going out to bars and doing things they're not supposed to do. And they deserve credit for that. It's not, I assume it's not easy yesterday for Morikawa. He's 24. He wins over $1 million to not, want to go have dinner and maybe 10, 12 drinks last night to celebrate, even when he won his major. So I think they've just bought into the system, bought into, what rules and regulations, and they haven't bitched and complained like, other sports. I think of tennis, like Novak Djokovic has. So credit to golf, and hopefully they can keep it going here because, like I said, a couple great weeks. The Arnold Palmer, the Players, you got Augusta back in its original slot in April. That's normally the Masters takes place on the first weekend of the NHL playoffs and the NBA playoffs. That's the best weekend of sports for me of the year. Normally, it won't be this year because the NHL obviously was pushed back. So was the NBA. That's the best sports weekend of the year. I don't know how it could be beat. You get the Augusta all day, starting at like 11 o'clock on a Saturday. You always get an afternoon hockey game. The NBA usually starts at about 1:30 in the afternoon. I mean, you just got a clicker. I mean, that's money. Obviously, the March Madness weekends are always fun too when you get closer to the playoffs. But that won't happen this year. But it'll be fun just the same. Augusta National. Even if you're not a huge golf fan, tuning into that is like watching the Daytona 500. I'd put the two together. They're special and they deserve your respect and your attention. Pivoting to the world of hockey, and a couple stories that have really gone quiet, but I like to bring them up here to the point. The Columbus Blue Jackets have lost 5 in a row, including a pair this weekend to the Nashville Predators, scoring a combined 2 goals. They're 6 points out of a playoff spot right now behind Carolina, and Carolina has 3 games in hand. They're a mess. And I think in the NHL right now, there's a lot of general managers whose ass should be on fire. And one's got to be Jarmo Kekalainen. I think he's a really good general manager. He's been with Columbus since they fired Doug McLean, and that was a long time ago. But him and Torts, it's not working this year. Chicago, which has been the surprise of the league, continues to win. I'll get to Patrick Kane in a minute, but Columbus 2 goals against Nashville. Nashville is not a defensive stalwart team. Nashville is a team that's a flat out disaster. They made this funny announcement that every player is available except Yossi and Ellis, and Johansson's available. No shit, Ryan Johansson's available. Nobody wants him. He can't play. But UC Saros and Pecorine pick up a pair of wins, and it's just ugly right now. And this could really end badly. And this is why I say Jarmo Kekalainen's ass is on fire. They trade Pierre-Luc Dubois, which I understand. But he wanted out. He was quitting. Okay, that's fine. But you trade for Laine. He's been a mixed bag, but that's his whole career. He's a mixed bag. He's not a consistent enough player when it comes to work ethic, when it comes to buy-in, when it comes to being a team player. You just don't see that. When he's on, he's a horse. But When he's not, he's a GOAT. And that's just kind of his career. He didn't score over the weekend. And you got to look at the center ice position. He's playing with Alexander Texier. And I like Texier as a player. I think he's a really good little spark plug kind of guy. I think he's more of a third line center, but you're playing him with Line A. That's not going to work. You got behind him, you got guys like Liam Foudy. He's 20 years old. He's not a finished product. He needs AHL time, but it's tough this year with the AHL because some days it's going, some days it's not. Development is being put on hold, and that's obviously a tough situation there. But they don't have players. They have Nick Foligno playing center now. Nick Foligno's a right winger. He's not a center. Especially at his age, he can't play center. I mean, he hasn't played center, and you got him playing center on this team. If Line A walks, which he can after the year, because he'll be an unrestricted free agent, that trade is a disaster. I mean, you lose Pierre-Luc Dubois. If people haven't seen Winnipeg play, they're playing at an extremely high level right now. This is why I picked them to win the Canadian division. Toronto's built up a good point lead. Do I think Winnipeg can catch them? They play a bunch of times, so I'm not going to rule out Winnipeg. Winnipeg's playing the best hockey in the Canadian division right now, and that includes Toronto. I'll get to them, but Dubois, who looks like a rock star playing with Scheifele and Wheeler, and then you got Line A, who is in one game, in the out. Seth Jones, who I love, hasn't been consistent this year. I still think he's a stud, and it's not going to change. Werenski's been banged up. He's been in and out of the lineup. The goaltending's been a mixed bag. They can't score. But again, being 6 points out of a playoff spot, Chicago is third in the Central. Chicago, they're up on Carolina by a point. They got 27 to Carolina's 26. It's crazy. Columbus and Chicago played the even amount of games, and they're 7 points behind them. It's a disaster right now for Columbus. And I know he's been there a long time, and he's in the walk year of his deal. I don't know if Jarmo would fire John Tortorella mid-season. He doesn't really have a coach on the bench that you could say, well, he's going to turn our fortunes around. So I don't think they'll fire him, but he's in the walk year of his contract. I think the organization, if they miss the playoffs for sure, I think Torts won't be back. I still think Torts is a really good coach, but this team just hasn't found it yet. Atkinson hasn't found his game since a few years ago. He had some injuries, inconsistent play. He's not the same player as he was. Again, Texier, I really like, but they got guys like Eric Robinson. I think Eric Robinson is the second fastest player in the NHL. Watch a Columbus game and look for number 50. He won't play that much. He's on the third or fourth line. I think he's the second fastest player in the NHL other than Connor McDavid. But he's got the hands of Ilya Mikheyev. If he could finish, this guy would be a threat. He'd play in the top 6 for sure. And I think teams would want him. He gets 2-3 breakaways a game where it's just brick after brick. And it's tough for him. But for this team where you're looking for goal scoring and it's just not coming. And on paper, they should be better. They got Savard. They got Seth Jones, Werenski, Dean Kukin. Gavrikov's a really solid D. They rotate Del Zotto on the back end with Harrington. But something's missing. And I think it's why they haven't made that extra jump in the playoffs. They always fall short. They don't have elite goal scoring. Line A is a great goal scorer, but he's not an Austin Matthews where he can create his own scoring chances. Having a guy to tune him up a lot is kind of where Line A relies on it. He needs a guy to find him the puck, and there's not an elite passer on this team where, an Alex DeBrincat has a Patrick Kane, where a Kubalik has a Patrick Kane. In this division, if you look at top down, Huberdeau has Barkov. These other players have Huberdeau to give them the puck to put in the back. Hornquist has Huberdeau. looking down Tampa Bay, Point, Stamkos. I mean, Stamkos is an elite goal scorer. He's also a really good passer. So is Braden Point. So having that guy, that Nick Backstrom to Ovechkin, is paramount, and I just don't see it on this Columbus roster. And there's still some season left. They could obviously find their game, but they're lose 2 in a row to Nashville with scoring 2 goals. That's a tough look, and that would worry me for them moving forward. And I mentioned GMs and coaches that should be on the hot seats. I'm just going to go through the list here. I mentioned last week Brad Treliving. They beat Ottawa on Saturday, so good for them. They get a win. They might back their way into the playoffs because Montreal is just so inept right now. But if you make the playoffs on that 4 seed and you get blown out by Toronto, what did you really accomplish? Nothing. You made the playoffs. You were gone in 4 days. So Brad Treliving, to me, unless they make a huge move, but if it looks like they're going to miss the playoffs, the trade deadline is in a month, is in 42 days. It's April 12th. He needs to address the position of general manager, because if you're going to let go of your general manager, why should he be making deadline deals? His vision for the organization is not going to be the same as yours, because his goal might be, okay, let's go for it now. Yours might be, we don't have the talent, we're going to rebuild. So they need to figure. I think Treliving, he's fired too many coaches. I think he should have been gone before. I wouldn't be shocked to see him gone. So that's one. Jim Benning, Vancouver. I'm not surprised that Vancouver is this bad, because I had them finishing 6th, and I've tried to say that from the beginning. I remember talking to my friend Casey about it, saying Vancouver's not going anywhere, and there's a number of reasons for that. And it's mostly on Jim Benning, and it's called bad contracts. Louis Eriksson, signing him to that long-term deal. He's not even playing in the NHL. He can't play in the NHL. The guy just doesn't have it anymore. Brandon Sutter, who was an injury-plagued player in Pittsburgh. So you throw him a 5-year deal at over $5 million a year. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. Antoine Roussel, who's an effective player, don't get me wrong, but he's more of a guy you give a 1-year deal or 2 years max. Like, he's not, you give him 3 times, or you give him 4 times 3. Okay. Jay Beagle, you give him 3 times 3. These guys don't bring you any offense. Beagle and Roussel are the same player. Why do you need 2 of them? Tyler Mott, same thing. And they got these where they're just buried down. They're bogged down with their roster. They don't got good depth. They got Jake Virtanen, who is lost. I mean, I don't like him as a player when he's playing well. So now he's playing like dog shit. Of course, he's even worse. So Jim Benning got to be on the hot seat, because he's gotten Vancouver into this mess, and it's not going to change overnight. These contracts, you're not getting rid of them. You got a flat cap, and you're stuck with it. So Vancouver is not going to be great in 5 days. Sorry, Vancouver fans out there. It's going to be a haul before you get better. David Poyle in Nashville. I don't think they'd fire him, because he's been there for 22, 23 years, long time. He was with Washington originally when they became an expansion franchise. Then he moved to Columbus when they broke into the league. He's been their GM since day one. I don't know if they'd ask him to be a president or what would happen, but they had their kick at the can. Now they got a lot of deals that just aren't looking that great. You had Turris, you had to buy him out. Johansson is a mess. Again, you got Rene, who's still in the books. Your team's older, not able to score. It's just, I don't know if they'd fire him. Like I said, he's been there forever, but if he's not willing to accept a new job and you want a new guy running the ship, then you got to make tough decisions. And this is, the business of sports. So David Poyle could be looking for new employment if things don't go well. Those are the 3 big ones for me. I'm probably missing a few. I mean, other than that, I think those three really got to be worried about their job security right now. And Marc Bergevin in Montreal. Again, Montreal or Calgary are going to back into the playoffs the way they're playing right now. I think Montreal's better than Calgary. I have more faith that Montreal can turn their season around. I like their core team. Obviously, they're struggling to score goals. They need more production from KK. Suzuki scored a goal Saturday night, but they need more production from him. But I think Montreal is a core team. Again, to build a team, I think they got a better team top to bottom than Calgary. Carey Price needs to find out what goaltending is, and then he can, maybe get back in the net. But Jake Allen, he started Saturday. They got a point in overtime. He would start again for me. Tuesday, they're in Ottawa. He's starting. I know Carey Price makes $10.5 million. I know he's the Sochi hero winning the gold medal. He's not playing like that right now. The past 3 years, he's got a .909 save percentage combined. That's not great. It's not good. He's been mediocre for a while here, and it's been an underreported story because Carey Price has this aura of kind of Crosby, of these elite players, yet, Crosby's won 3 cups. Crosby has done it at the highest level. He's won it, won those rings, done it forever, being a consistent player. Carey hasn't been. Is that partly because his teams in front of him aren't that great? Of course. But it's also looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not good enough. That goal Thursday night that Nate Thompson scored, that doesn't go in on Justin Pogge. But somehow it beats Carey Price. So again, Bergevin, they miss the playoffs, or they back in and they play Toronto and they get embarrassed in 4 or 5 games. I can't see him being the general manager long term. The only way these guys stick around for me is because it's a pandemic. There's no fans, and teams just don't have the money, or they're too cheap to hire another guy. But Montreal isn't. Jeff Molson won't be afraid to do it. He's not afraid to spend money. Calgary, Vancouver, they could be different things. The Aquilinis, I know, aren't the people that love spending money the most. So maybe they would keep Jim Benning, but we'll see. A coach that's going to be on the hot seat here for sure is Ralph Kruger in Buffalo. Buffalo played Philly twice over the weekend, and they got a combined 0 goals, losing 3-0 twice. And then we see Ralph Kruger come out and say, well, Jack Eichel got an injury during a warm-up. Eichel clarifying, saying, no, I got actually injured during a game. He said, I don't know what Ralph's talking about. So clearly there's a lack of communication in this organization. They've been scratched. Jeff Skinner was scratched 3 times last week. He's making $9 million for another 6 years after this one. He's got 0 goals on the season with 2 points, playing on the 4th line. They got Taylor Hall, who's got 1 goal on the season, making $8 million. And then you got Jack Eichel, who's only got 2, injured, rumored one to be out at the end of last year. This organization continues to take a nosedive. Ralph Kruger. They hired Ralph Kruger, and I don't know why. He was in Edmonton. He wasn't a good coach there. I mean, he was part of those losing years with Neil Yakupov and the lean years in Edmonton where it seemed like nothing could go right. And then he goes and coaches soccer, so he goes to coach soccer. He coaches soccer for 5 years, and then all of a sudden he's this hot candidate, and Buffalo is so excited. Why? He didn't do anything, and then he didn't coach hockey for 5 years. Like, is he keeping up with the game? Is he still in tune with coaching decisions? And last year was not a success, and this year, again, it's their last in their division. 0 goals over the weekend. Again, Eichel's not playing well. Taylor Hall isn't playing well. Skinner's on the 4th line. This team, they're going to have to gut it again. They're going to have to go through another rebuild after going through a rebuild and having no success. That the fans of Buffalo have got to be going crazy. They've had Ristolainen forever. He's always been rumored to be on the trade block, but never moved. I got to suspect he's finally going to move from Buffalo. He's only played for the Sabres, but it's about time that they move him. Hall before the deadline. I don't know what you're going to get for him. As of right now, he's a player that's bringing you nothing. I think you can get him for dirt cheap. And if you're Buffalo, if you don't trade him, is he coming back? Because if I'm Taylor Hall, I'm not going back there. Even if I have to take way less money in your next contract, I don't go back to Buffalo. You're not moving Skinner. He's got another 6 years after this one at $9 million. He was a healthy scratch 3 times last week. 2 years ago, he scored 40-plus goals, looked like a rock star. And Jeff Skinner's always been a good player. He won the Calder Trophy in his rookie year. He scoring over 30 goals that season as a rookie. And I always liked him as a player in Carolina. But he was a 25, 30 goal scorer, not a 40. Contract year, he scores 40. And he only takes one sucker team to give a bad contract. And of course, it's the Buffalo Sabres. They're known for being stupid. And they give him that contract. And 8 times 9, and it's a burden right now. No, they couldn't trade that contract even if they wanted. If they offered Skinner for Bobrovsky straight up with Florida wouldn't take that at 10.5. I don't know where this team goes. I think Eichel's likely gone. That's going to be a really tough trade because with a flat cap, his $10.5 million cap hit moving the other way, that's difficult, but I think a number of teams would be interested. Taylor Hall, like I said, he's making $8 million this year. Don't be surprised his next contract if he's making 5 or less. And I mean that. I don't know how you'd look at him and say he's worth anything more than that. I don't think he's not going to go down to league minimum after this year, but to say for him to go into his next contract offer, him talking with his agent saying, okay, I want something with a 7 in it because I had a bad year. I don't know how many, no team's paying that. I mean, he had to go to Buffalo to get 8. So clearly his market wasn't that great before. It's only dropping game by game by game that he doesn't produce in Buffalo with Jack Eichel, who's one of the most creative forwards in the NHL. So Buffalo, again, Ralph Kruger, they just hired Kevin Adams, so I can't see them firing him, but it's a mess. It's a mess right now in Buffalo, New York. Pair of items of the Canadian division. Toronto beating Edmonton Saturday night 4-0. It was an impressive win. Another sleepy game for me. The media loves this Toronto-Edmonton matchup. They played 2 more times this week. I think they played 5 times so far. There hasn't been an entertaining game yet. But doesn't mean if you're a Toronto fan, you love it because your team won. And they showed some good signs. They played really well defensively. They doubled Connor. They didn't make it easy on him. He had no space the entire game. And I liked that. I liked how they did that. They were without, obviously 34. So they had to win without him. You saw Nylander score, Tavares. So Leafs fans can cheer for John Tavares there. But all in all, their biggest thing was Jack Campbell was solid. They played really well defensively. And they brought an effort. And that's what I was most impressed by. I really enjoyed what they brought defensively. They didn't give up anything easy. They played the game hard. I really hope these two teams don't meet in the playoffs because it's going to be a dog of a matchup. Neither team throws a check, so that's tough to watch. But I love Connor McDavid. I love watching Matthews play. But if they meet in the playoffs, it's gonna be tough. It'll be tough for me. But I'm sure everybody's gonna hate that take, but it is what it's just not for me. I think what's great if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan today is your team is showing that they can play the right way, and that's the most important thing. Can they actually play defensive hockey? Yes, but I think what you got to remember too, Leafs fans, and I'm just speaking to you directly, they played a defensive game against Edmonton, who bring nothing to the table when it comes to physical play, when it comes to battles, when it comes to things like that. When you see in the playoffs playing heavy, which is what winning teams do, you're playing against another weak team. And I'm not saying weak as in a bad team. I just mean weak as in playoff stature, how you build a playoff team. I don't think either team's built, great when it comes to that. So, but they can only beat who's on their schedule. So I'm not going to, Edmonton had won 11 out of 13 coming in. It's an impressive win for sure. But the way Toronto's played, their biggest threat is Winnipeg. And I mean, I still think Winnipeg, the past 2-3 weeks, they're playing the best hockey in the division. Mark Scheifele is playing at such a high level. It's crazy. Again, it's Winnipeg and it's in Canada, and he doesn't get talked about enough because you got to hear ad nauseum about Alexander Kerfoot or Travis Dermott. Mark Scheifele is so fucking good. It's crazy. You got Kyle Connor, who's going roof dad and Carey Price every night. Paul Stastny, who's, turn back the clock, gets an OT winner on Saturday night. Another thing Winnipeg does great, and I appreciate this because they end the game before it goes to that stupid gimmick. 3 forwards in overtime. They've done it twice in their past 3 games. They won both times within a minute of the overtime starting. Dubois scored. I think it was against Vancouver, I believe. And then you get Stastny the other night in 36 seconds, who beat Jake Allen. It's brilliant. More teams should do it. Toronto, they should send out Matthews, Marner, Nylander to start in overtime. Because if you think of it, okay, you need a defenseman to cover. Defensemen are roaming the whole time 3-on-3 anyway. You're covering your guy. Defenseman's going to move up. There's so many breakaways. It's going to happen regardless. It doesn't matter if there's a defenseman back there. Plus, who's Toronto defenseman? Morgan Riley? Who's he going to defend? So I think it's a fantastic idea, and clearly it's working for them. But yeah, I think that's a smart move moving forward for teams. And I think a team like Toronto, I think a team like Edmonton with Draisaitl, McDavid, and then you can throw RNH or even Puljujärvi with the 2 guys is something to look at. But good on Toronto. Big win without Matthews. He skated. He was limited in practice yesterday. He might start. Freddie Anderson, they said, is not available tonight. It might be Hutchinson actually, because Campbell didn't practice yesterday either, but that could just be a precaution. So we'll see. But Toronto's giving themselves a good lead in this division. Again, Winnipeg is in Vancouver tonight. They play twice this week before they play the Habs again. So I like I said, I think Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton clearly are the 3 the class of the North. And then you got Montreal and Calgary, which are still trying to find themselves, and whichever one does first will likely get into the playoffs. But Calgary's got some easier games against Ottawa coming up. They need to take advantage of those games. Ottawa's playing tougher, but they're still clearly the worst team in this division. And when you get those opportunities to get points against a lesser team, you need to capitalize. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there, but a good performance from Toronto, good performances from Winnipeg the past couple nights, and obviously Edmonton loses a game, but they had won 11 out of 13, so they're finding some success as well. And I'm going to point this out, I said earlier, Patrick Kane. Chicago loses to Detroit Saturday night. They come back yesterday, just whoop their ass, winning 7-2. But, the big point of the game is Patrick Kane scoring his 400th career goal. To me, he's the MVP of the league so far. I think he separated himself from McDavid, Matthew, whoever, by a significant margin. The definition of the MVP of the Hart Trophy is the player that is most valuable to his team. When Taylor Hall won the Hart Trophy, it was because he had 50 more points than the next closest player on his team. Patrick Kane is playing with with 8 rookies on his team right now. They have 8 rookies dressed. Pius Suter, who's from Switzerland. Nobody knew him before the year. He's got 8 goals now. He's got DeBrincat, but DeBrincat's not a household name. No Taves, no Kirby Doc, no Alex Nylander, no Seabrook, no Corey Crawford. And yet they're third in the Central Division and only 2 points behind Tampa Bay and Florida. It's damn impressive. He's playing like he's 24, just dancing around the ice, making it look so easy. And him to get to goal number 400, I think he's the best American player of all time. You look at the greats, you got Modano that right there for sure. But I just don't think you could match it. What he's done, 3 Stanley Cups, doing it all, being a captain at a world championship. He'll be at the next Olympics, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the captain of that team. It's what he's done in Chicago this year is exemplary. And if he could somehow drag that team into the playoffs, I don't know how he doesn't win the Hart Trophy. And at 32 years old to still be playing at this high of a level, when you see players that kind of get to his age, they die off. I mean, look at John Tavares. He's younger than Patrick Kane, and he's a step behind most nights. Patrick Kane's not a step behind. He's right there with Matthews, McDavid, with all these guys when it comes to being the best in the world at what you do. And I think he deserves a ton of credit. And getting to goal number 400, it's a great milestone. Would have been cool if obviously there was fans obviously in Chicago last night. They would have rejoiced with him, but by any means, they win the game 7-2. Kane, DeBrincat, Kubalik, they filled the net. And Chicago's riding high right now. And kudos to them. Kudos to Patrick Kane. And hopefully they can keep it up down the stretch here. Pivoting to the NBA, it was strange. Friday, it was about halfway through the day, and it comes up in my timeline that all of the Raptors coaching staff will be out for Friday night's game against the Houston Rockets because of COVID health and safety protocols. It wasn't known if one of them had tested positive or if they come in contact with somebody that did, but the whole coaching staff was out. They had to bring in this kind of filler coach who they had in the back. He coached. They beat the Houston Rockets, which isn't a big feat. Houston had lost 10 in a row before for the matchup, even though Pascal Siakam also did not play because of being in close contact with a coach. So that happens. They get through that. That's fine. Then we go to yesterday, and the game's canceled about mid-afternoon. They were supposed to play the Chicago Bulls, and it's canceled because they wouldn't have had 8 players available, which is the league minimum to play an NBA game, meaning that a bunch of players had either tested positive or entered COVID protocol for being a close contact. And what this says to me is they shouldn't have played Friday night. If they only got 8 players 2 days later, the game Friday should have been postponed. If that's the rule, you got these protocols, and it's in the NBA. If you close contact, you're in quarantine for 10 to 14 days. I don't know how you play. I really don't know how you play that game. It didn't make much sense to me. Looking back, I don't know how the NBA does that. And what this really does, obviously it's unfortunate for the Raptors. The All-Star break is their last games are Thursday before the All-Star weekend next weekend, which will not be covered here. But what this points to me is, why are you having an All-Star game? You got the Raptors who are having a COVID outbreak. You had one in San Antonio last week. You had one in Orlando, Charlotte. Why? You're sending all your best players to one place where if one of them gets it, they're all going to have to go into protocol. But the NBA needs that revenue. They need those. I don't know why it's such a big thing on TV that people watch an All-Star game or it's slam dunk contest. It's all a waste of time. But to me, it just makes no sense to send all your best players to one locale and have them potentially exposed to the virus. I mean, if it's about safety, which it isn't, which is a bullshit crock of shit that leagues have been using, we can't do this because of safety and all, even in politics, safety and all this crap. It's, if you were being safe, you just give them 4 or 5 days off and then you come back and keep playing games. Not, let's fly them all to Atlanta where, I've never been to Atlanta, but I've heard that Atlanta's a pretty good party town. And I've also heard they've got some pretty good strip clubs, just being in sports and hearing stories and podcasts. So you're telling me that these players are just going to be, good choir boys and show up to the arena with their Bibles, play a slam dunk contest, not walk up and down the floor with the stupid All-Star game, and then fly home? Okay, sure. I'm a very gullible person. I like to believe in the best of people, so of course that's what's going to happen. No, I don't believe that for a second. And if the NBA is being two-faced right now, because this year is not about all-star games. It's about getting through your season. There's no bubble. They had it last year. It worked perfect. Well, there isn't one. So if LeBron James gets COVID and then Damian Lillard and James Harden, Kevin Durant all get COVID, then who the fuck's going to watch an NBA game when you got Bruce Brown starting at point guard, and then you're bringing in Vonleh off the bench for Brooklyn, and you got a bunch of guys that you can't even pronounce their names, and you're like, okay, who is this? What league is this? Those TNT and ESPN ratings won't be so good then, because guess what? Nobody will be watching because nobody cares. The NBA is a star-driven league. Most leagues are, but the NBA is more than every other one because it's about that name. You hear the name Kevin Durant, you hear the name LeBron James, it speaks out. You know who they are. And it's just so amusing how leagues, how governments, how just people who preach about safety can be so oblivious and so arrogant to defeating their own purpose. And the NBA has always been a player-driven league. We've heard enough players speak out against the All-Star game where yet they're still doing it. So clearly players do not have all the power because otherwise there would have been a change of plans here. Spring training got underway yesterday. We saw exhibition games in baseball. I watched a bit of the Blue Jays Yankees game. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest in any sport when it comes to exhibition games. I think you got to take everything with a grain of salt. I saw a few at bats. I thought, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looked good. It was clearly obvious that he had a weight loss. 42 pounds. He had a good swing, got an RBI double, so that was a good little look for him. Anthony Kay threw a solid couple innings. But I liked, spring training, exhibition games, they're always tough to judge because they don't mean anything. You can pitch there's guys who've had fantastic preseasons and you look like a rock star. You get on the ice in the regular season or you get on the field of play, doesn't matter what it is, and you're junk. And that's kind of how I look at spring training and for any sport. What you do in these games, it matters on the minuscule amount. If it's my spectrum of importance, say high, the ceiling is here, it's so low because you could bat 400, but you could go to the regular season and bat under the Mendoza line. I've seen it happen. So, it's good repetition. Like I know the Blue Jays announced George Springer is going to make his spring debut tomorrow, which whoop-de-doo. But for them, it's more about just staying healthy. Spring training. Pitchers get their work in, get the innings going. So when they start, they can at least throw 4 or 5 good innings for you. You stretch them out a little bit as the spring training goes on. But, wins and losses are irrelevant. Just staying healthy, getting loose, and working out the kinks so that you're ready to go April 1st is the key. I mean, the season's a month away from getting going. That's when the games will count. So we'll see what happens, but I like, I like how Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looked. I thought Biggio had a couple good hits yesterday. So for the Blue Jays, it's a good thing for them. The Yankees, I think it's gonna be interesting. The AL East. I don't. I think it's a winnable division. I still think the Rays will be a good team, but they've dropped down with losses of Blake Snell, and who knows if they're gonna have the same amount of production from Randy Arozarena as they did last year. You got the Yankees with their pitching is not an elite pitching staff. It can be had for sure. And then the Blue Jays, again, their pitching staff is very underwhelming as well. So I think it's three teams that are kind of flawed, and we'll see what they can bring to the table. But it should make for a good divisional race. You also see some good rate. I think the NL West. We got Padres, Dodgers. That's a must-watch series. And then you got the Central, where the Cubs are kind of in transition. You got the Cardinals, who went out and got Nolan Arenado. That'll be interesting to see what'll happen in that division. Then the NL East, you got the Mets, who are a lot better. You got the Nationals, who won the World Series 2 years ago. There's some good teams in that division. You got Philly with Bryce Harper. So that the Marlins have improved a lot over the last couple of years. Then you got the Atlanta Braves, who went to the NL Game 7, the National League Championship game against the Dodgers, but fell short. So I'll get more into baseball as we get closer to the year, but I'm hoping for a great season. I mean, they're planning to play 162. I hope they can get through it, and with good health and everything in that nature. To close out the podcast, just like to congratulate Team Canada and Carrie Anderson, who won the Scotties Tournament of Hearts last night, defeating Rachel Homan for the second straight year, 7-6. She went 10-2 in the round robin. She had to beat Laura Walker in the Alberta rink yesterday in the semifinal, and then defeated Homan, like I said, for the second straight year for the Scotties title. It's her second title. She's been to the final 3 times. She curls out of Manitoba, but representing Team Canada, being the defending champion, winning her second title. Rachel Homan's rank has won 3. Jennifer Jones has won 6. So keeping Homan from rising the ranks of champions here is a big story. And, another tournament where they had a bubble. It was successful. They got through it. And, the Brier is going to start Friday. So these tournaments are getting done. Obviously they're only, when it comes to countries, we're not going to see, the Worlds where Anderson would play, Norway and Scotland and all these other teams. But with the win, she guarantees herself Olympic trials qualifying for 2022 next year. She guarantees to play at the Worlds next year. So they get some added benefits of this tournament win. And, to win 2 in a row is an impressive feat, and, good on her team to come back after a year, obviously difficult with COVID, with lack of practice, to go out there and win. And, curling, I miss curling. And I ended up watching a lot of that final last night and the semis yesterday, just because you don't see it. I didn't see it as much. There's a lot of tournaments normally, but again, the Brier starting Friday. So I'll be tuned into that as well. So good for Carrie. Congratulations on winning your second Scotties title. And obviously they'll be looking to represent Canada at the 2022 Olympic Games. That's pretty much going to do it today. Got a busy week scheduled. Tomorrow night, me and Seamus are going to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of Sharper Objects. It's the show he picked. It's a show on Crave. It's about based on the book by Gillian Flynn, who wrote the book Gone Girl. That's also got converted into a movie. Fantastic book. So I'm really looking forward to the show. It stars Amy Adams. So we'll get into that tomorrow night. Wednesday night, I'm going to do a round table. We're supposed to do it yesterday. Ran into some technical difficulties. So myself, Seamus Fillmore, Sawyer Hanna, and Casey Ward, we're all going to predict Team Canada's Olympic roster for 2022 when it comes to men's hockey. And we're going to go through our lists, forwards, defense, goalies, and give you our reasoning and kind of go through it that way. So that'll be a lot of fun. Thursday morning, I'll be back with another recap myself. And then later in the week, I'd like to do maybe a live. Me and Craig are off this week because he's on a March break with his kids. So might do a Facebook Live or something later in the week. Just talk about some sports with a friend or whatnot. And obviously coming down the stretch, we got March Madness in a couple. That starts March 19th, so that's 19 days away. Got some again golf. We got golf coming up. Continuous hockey. The trade deadline as that gets closer. I'll get more into that and potential deals and teams that could be on the market for offloading players or adding players for a potential playoff run. So I hope you guys all had a great weekend. We're back for another Monday. A lot of content coming this week, so stay tuned. But until then, stay safe and take care.